شكراً لضيوفنا الأعزاء على هذه الأفكار القيمة حول كيفية تأمين الاستقرار المالي للمشاريع الناشئة. والآن تتعمق الجلسة الحوارية الآتية في موضوع مهرجان الشارقة لريادة الأعمال 2021 الخاص بإحداث التغيير فردياً وجماعياً.
We'd like to thank you all, of course, or thank you all for these valuable insights on how to secure the financial stability of startup ventures. And now our next panel discussion will dig a bit deeper into the SEF 2021 topic of making change happen, individually and collectively.
في محادثة يديرها إبراهيم الزعبي الرئيس التنفيذي للاستدامة لدى شركة ماجد الفطيم القابضة، يناقش علي تبريزي مخرج فيلم سيسبيرسي، وشون دانيس الشريك المؤسس والرئيس التنفيذي لشركة سيفود سوق، نهج كل منهما لتغيير العالم والتعامل الواثق مع القضايا الكبرى.
In a conversation moderated by Ibrahim Zu'bi, the Chief Sustainability Officer, Majid Futtaim-Holding, we will hear from Ali Tabrizi, the Director of Seaspiracy, and Sean Dennis, a co-founder and CEO of Seafood Souq, about their approaches to changing the world, and more importantly, the confidence to take on the big issues. Stage is yours. Afwan.
Can you hear me? No. Okay, can you hear me now? Okay, you can, sorry. Okay, assalamu alaikum, bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. First of all, I would like to thank on behalf of my fellow panelists, Sharjah Entrepreneurship Festival, Najla, Sharif, for making this happen and for having us here. And before I start, a big shout out to Nisreen Shuqair. She gave you one of the best advices, and I'm going to be biased being a Chief Sustainability Officer. She said sustainability, which I completely agree with her. I just got back from Glasgow, COP26, and people were talking for the first time on solutions. They were not debating climate change. They were talking about solutions, and I could see startups, venture capitals on climate tech, changemakers, are having a big light and big space of the stage. Talking about making change happen, I'm very lucky to have real change makers with me today, that very inspiring individuals. We had a really good discussion outside before preparing for this panel, and I'm super excited for our discussion. We decided to make it as informal as we can, because I don't think we get the opportunity to have the stage to talk about something, first of all, close to my heart, as well as close to the panelists' hearts, which is the love of the ocean. I am, again, my name is Ibrahim Zu'bi. I'm the CSO of Majid Futaim, but also I'm very lucky to be part of a marine conservation organization that in the UAE. I'm the co-founder of the Emirates Diving Association. Hence, I'm so excited to have with me Ali Tabrizi. Ali is the director of the groundbreaking Netflix original documentary, Seaspiracy, which aims to highlight the impacts of the fishing industry. And we have also Sean Dennis, the co-founder and CEO of Seafood Souq, which is the platform that advocates and facilitates the implementation of sustainable seafood procurement. First of all, welcome both of you on behalf of Sharjah Entrepreneurship Festival and the audience here. We have, I think, between the three of us, we have one thing in common: the passion of the oceans and the sea, and actually understanding the change that we need to make and to make it happen, which is a bit different. You have the passion for something, and then to actually taking the initiative to make it happen. I think this is where the bottleneck. And I'll start with you, Ali, if you may. Tell us when the the need to change became that I will make the change for you?
Well, it all first started with curiosity. I think without curiosity, you can't really succeed at anything, whether that's in making a film or starting a company or a non-profit. You need that curiosity that is going to unlock the ability to think outside the box and to ask the questions that no one else has asked before. And eventually, obviously my passion, I was always passionate about the ocean and wildlife, and so it was a natural journey that I was going on. But growing up, watching nature documentaries, I thought the planet was just abundant with wildlife everywhere, and that eventually when I was old enough, it'd be a matter of just picking up that camera and going and making my own documentary about the natural world. But pretty soon I noticed that the ocean was actually dying and marine wildlife was vanishing faster than ever before. And I was naturally drawn to this question, why is the ocean dying and how do we stop it before it's too late? So the curiosity led to that question, and then finding an answer to that question became my purpose. And then I became obsessed with it. And so that's really the initial, the spark that led to that. And there's a famous quote that says, if you don't believe that one person can make a change, then you're probably not the person that will be the person that makes the change. I wanted to find those answers because I was just curious. So that's where it all kind of started from.
Okay, so nature is suffering, and I'll share with you something before I talk to Sean. Something I took away from Glasgow, COP26. Because of the presence of Sir David Attenborough, nature came back to the negotiation tables for the first time. And this is something I've noticed in the last COPs, which is when we talk about climate change, we forget about the oceans, we forget about the nature. We listened since morning and since yesterday about innovators and investors putting money into technology. And I listened to the panel this morning talk about technology for good. And this is something I think when we talk about nature-based solutions or technology for good. Sean, what took you, what's the click that made you take that leap of faith to use technology for good and to ensure and do you agree with Ali about, you're a free diver as well. You go, I scuba dive, you free dive. Ali goes out and document everything. Do the oceans really suffering as well? Would you like to share this with the audience?
Yeah, and I mean, the reasons I've got into doing what I do as well, similar reasons to what Ali mentioned, the curiosity. But I grew up most of my life in the UAE, so I grew up on and in the beach, probably spend more time in the water than I do on land. And I think you all know my co-founder, Sheikh Fahim Al-Qasimi as well, of Sharjah. And you only need to open up a newspaper or open up social media to see him saving another turtle or freediving with me as well, which is good. So my background being technology, it's been an incredible opportunity with that curiosity and with my life's background to be able to merge my two passions, to be able to actually make a difference. And I think when you're talking about how we address some of the issues, it's with technology, we're able to provide traceability. And I use the phrase traceability as the precursor to sustainability, where we eradicate a lot of the opacity that is within the seafood, and not just seafood supply chain or industry, but also all food groups. It makes it far harder for any bad actors to occupy or to operate within that space. And the opportunity for me to be able to address that and make a real difference, huge.
One of the things that I think, the other things other than the love of ocean that you both share in Souq, in Seafood Souq, or in Seaspiracy is transparency. Sean, what do you think the transparency helped you with the customers to have a social for good business?
Well, there's been, and it's been really great to see over the last, say, 5 or 10 years, a change in the conscious behavior of the end consumer. At the end of the day, we as consumers are the most powerful driving force behind change of the business operators. But, and especially, this is particularly true within the seafood industry, we as consumers weren't equipped with the information or the ability to make decisions which match our ethos or our values as customers. With the product that we've created, which is called SFS Trace, which brings full supply chain traceability to the end consumer, we're enabling that consumer to make the ethical choice based on their values. Although we are a B2B play, our customers are HoReCa restaurants, hotels, cafes, supermarkets, etc. And hopefully one day, Carrefour with you, Ibrahim. We've created what will be a QR code, which again can be on menus, can be on labeling, so the consumer can look at it, see what fish they're getting, when it was taken out of the water, what country it came from, and make that choice going, yes, this is the fish that I want, this is the one that I know I'm paying for, and basically put the power back in the hands of the consumer and or the ethical business buyer.
Thank you. Ali, you've seen a problem and you went after it, by the way, and watching your documentary, you did. The transparency in your documentary caused a ripple on organizational and social, the consciousness of groups. And when I was watching your documentary, you asked one of the organization what change you need to do to manage the destruction of the oceans. And actually, you went to their website and you went step by step on the recommendations that some of the international organizations that are supposed to protect the oceans, and they give their eco-labels. But in your point of view, from a Seaspiracy perspective, what's the long-term changes you can see that we need to do from corporate perspective, from different stakeholders to manage the destruction we have?
I wouldn't like to manage the destruction. I would like to end the destruction. And I think traceability is definitely something that should be commended and applauded. But we need to, I believe, go a little bit beyond that, because traceability might tell you where a fish is from.
Yes.
But you don't have CCTV cameras on those boats. You don't necessarily know the reality of the bycatch that might be happening. Taking the captain's word for it is what's led to a lot of problems in the past, especially around dolphin-safe labeling, when in fact there's no guarantee at all that anything is dolphin-safe, really. I think we need to also challenge the notion of sustainability. One of the running themes that I was finding in the interviews, whether that be with the European Union or with big NGOs that were, claiming to be the voice of the ocean, was that they couldn't actually give me a definition of what sustainability even meant, which was bizarre to me because this is the word of the decade, and yet it's incredible how little we actually understand about the phrase. And I realized that sustainability just means that you can do something over and over and over again, despite the fact it may not be the right thing to do. And I think we need to incorporate ethics into our decision making and have ethics be the lighthouse which guides us away from those destructive rocks, because I think ethics comes down to the heart, and we can instinctively know, at least to some degree, right choices versus wrong choices. Sustainability becomes a little bit of a numbers game, and I worry that the numbers game ends up hiding the suffering and the destruction that happens to marine life in the ocean. So I believe we need an ethical approach to how we look at the ocean.
I'm going to follow up on this. I think one of the lessons learned from COVID-19, among different lessons, that if one fall, we all fall. So we know this, and we know now ethics should be our true north, which I'm fully aligned with you. How we can use the hype now, especially post-COVID, COP26, COP27 will be in Egypt, COP28 will be in the United Arab Emirates, nature is back on the table, and no one can debate the ethical commitments. How we can use technology, how we can use the young people we have in this part of the world to be the change. If we want to have a roadmap for them, Ali, if you get to do a documentary about how the young people can be part of the change, how you will have a roadmap or the script as a director for them.
Okay, so there's 5 steps that I would apply to almost everything that I found upon reflection of making Seaspiracy. These are the things that I believe that can apply to everyone in this room. I already talked about curiosity. So follow your curiosity, and that will lead you to the right places. When you then have curiosity, you want to make it your purpose. Just like I found that question, it became my purpose to find an answer.
Yes.
Turn your curiosity into your purpose. And the really exciting thing is that when you have curiosity plus purpose, it equals obsession. An obsession is what's going to drive you to take the risks that no one else has done before. Obsession was what brought us to do those dangerous interviews in Thailand or take us 200 miles off the coast of Liberia. It was obsession which drove us there to go beyond what other people had been willing to do. And then with that obsession, you want to find the lies that humanity believes. Society and culture is forever accumulating narratives which are often based on lies, and they deserve to be challenged. So find the lies that society is believing and smash through them and come back with the truth. And when you do those things and you present those truths, you can't help but make the world a better place. There's a lot of talk about trying to make the world a better place, but what direction do you go and how do you decide what to focus on? And time and time again, it's those lies which are holding humanity back about itself. You could talk about Elon Musk breaking the lie that you can't have a reusable rocket, or you could have a lie that from Jane Goodall, who went to Africa and found that actually humans weren't the only species that were able to use tools. And by breaking those lies down, humanity progresses. So that's what I would say.
Yeah.
And then when it comes down to those COP26 events, I was also at COP26, and you have those big events. It comes back down to my worry that I just stated about sustainability and the legal definitions and words that governments use. So for example, I think Brazil was saying that they want to put an end to illegal deforestation, which sounds fantastic. Apart from the fact that they're now going to make what was illegal deforestation legal deforestation.
Okay.
So now it's like, okay, so you've got the same problem, but you just called it something different.
Yeah.
Or in Colombia, where they're saying that they're leading the way with green energy, but in Colombia, those definitions can be so loose that fracking can be seen as green energy. So we need transparency, and I would just encourage the younger generations to ask those questions and be curious, because that's what's going to smash through the lies, reveal the truth, and improve everything in society.
Talking about terminologies, and I think both of you will have, or may have, different aspects of sea fraud and how to tackle it. Is it a communicational, political, economic, legal, or informational fraud? How did you use your own expertise to change that, Sean?
And I think it's a great question, and it's a combination of all of those that you mentioned. When we talk about government or political, governments, depending on how well resourced, funded, and able to patrol their waters, in first world countries, for example, great, yes, they have the resources, they have the financial capabilities. So many developing countries, which is where a lot of our seafood comes from, they simply don't. How do we go about changing that? How do we work with governments? And Seafood Souq, my company, for example, works with the UAE government, but also Oman, and we're going in to meet regularly starting next year with the Minister for Blue Economy in Tanzania and Zanzibar. It's great that they're thinking about this, but they can't do it themselves. We, as businesses, need to go out and help them, make it economically viable for them to do so. And then from a business perspective, our business model, again, as a marketplace with traceability, we operate on a pull model rather than a push model in terms of bringing seafood into different countries or taking it to different countries. In developing countries, wastage of seafood in the supply chain can be anywhere between 40 and 45%. In developed countries, 20 to 25%. We are overfishing our oceans, as Ali's documentary shows, and then we're wasting nearly half of it when it's under our control. That is something that my company and that I don't sleep about at night while I think about, and something that we can address. With our model being a pull model, the product doesn't get ordered or come off the boat and go into a country unless there is a specific demand for it, i.e. a pull model rather than push. So under our model, it's 0% wastage. In addition, and this again comes as a relative shock to some or many, it's 1 in 5 items of seafood traded globally is mislabeled or misdated. That means you might be eating something you think is fresh that could actually be expiring tomorrow, or a great example, a lot of the time, or not a lot of the time, some of the time you're eating what you think is tuna. It's actually something that's nicknamed laxative of the sea, which can be really damaging to your health when consumed in sort of larger quantities. That's something that with traceability we can eliminate, or we have eliminated under our model. With the traceability, and again, we're very much focused on the supply chain element, but because we bring the transparency or traceability all the way through to the supply, we make sure we work with, and again, we're judges based on here, and we may or may not be right all the time, but with fisheries and or aquaculture projects that we deem to be good enough to come on. What it makes it very difficult for the bad actors and it's called IUU, illegal, unreported, unregulating fishing activities, to take place where traceability or transparency occurs, because no business buyer, or particularly one that has publicly listed or shareholders, will be able to purchase fish from an unregulated or illegal fishing source, because they can no longer, with transparency, pretend to have their head in the sand and just buy the cheapest product.
Yeah.
They'll have to be accountable with that traceability. And that's something that we want to bring to the table.
Ali, you want to add something there?
I think we're both approaching this from different philosophical bases. One is of uses of the marine life as a resource, as a food.
Yes.
And my approach is, really, I observe the fishing industry as the wildlife trade. I think it's very similar to wildlife poaching in my eyes, at least. These are wild animals. It's one of the only wild foods that we still eat, especially a global food commodity. And inherent in that, there are problems in not being aware of some of the unintended consequences of taking those animals out of the ocean, which we might go, with our limited data, we go, okay, this looks sustainable. A couple of years down the line, we'll go, actually, it was causing problems that we weren't foreseeing. And a lot of sustainability is based on maximum sustainable yield. How much of a fish can we take so that there's enough next year to take?
Yeah.
And so you take up to the brink so there's enough left to reproduce.
Yeah.
But we're forgetting a huge part of the picture, which is the rest of the ecosystem, which was also dependent on those anchovies, for example.
Yes.
Now the dolphins don't have food. Now the whales don't have food.
Yes.
And that's why we've seen such a huge diminishment. So philosophically, I think we approach things differently.
Yeah.
But I also applaud your work as well. And I think my approach is really one of reduction and elimination of marine life from our diets and moving towards a more plant-based diet overall, and asking governments to step in and, like you said, getting the political will to protect the ocean. We've launched a huge campaign to ask world leaders to protect 30% of the oceans from industrial fishing by the year 2030.
Yes.
And I'd like to see more countries join this campaign.
Bravo, great. Okay, briefly, I think we're running out of time. To both of you, are you satisfied with the change you have caused so far? And also, what is your true north? What's your end goal?
Jumping quickly, am I satisfied with what we've done so far? Absolutely not. This is just the start. We're a young company, and the more difference we can make, the better. I'm in this for the long haul, and as sort of we mentioned as well, working with governments, working with agencies, with the largest companies, all the way down to companies working with consumers. I want to address the entire seafood industry, and whether that eventually ends up with us protecting and stopping eating fish, whether we'll get there one day, inshallah, we'll see. But in the meantime, action that we can take now is something that I'm a massive advocate for. In terms of our North Star, I want the entire seafood industry to be part of an ecosphere that, again, I'm dreaming here, or allow me to dream, that we create, that brings traceability to every seafood transaction, where we eliminate the possibility for bad actors to operate within that infrastructure and get rid of the opacity within the seafood industry.
Thank you, Ali.
My true north when it comes to a sort of mission statement that I bring forth to all my documentaries that I'll be making, or future films, is to try and challenge the lies that we believe, and whether that's individually or across society. So revealing the truth is something that I'm really passionate about. And when it comes to a more ecological approach, I believe that it's hard to come across silver bullets of a solution, but I really do believe that shifting towards a more plant-based diet in general around the world is something that I would love to see happen, and will do wonders for the overall wildlife in our oceans, but also on land.
Thank you so much. Well, before I wrap up, I would like to thank, it's been a pleasure. And now I'm going to book my first dive. Ali, I know you're traveling tomorrow, you're flying tomorrow. Next time you come to the UAE, you must dive with us, the UAE. We'll make sure that you will do that. So on behalf of all of you, I thank Sean and Ali. And before we wrap up, thank you. I think I would like just to use, if I may, for 10 seconds, I think the way forward, and we are in Entrepreneurship Festival, normalizing this is the way we should do, which means we should, if you think of anything, normalizing sustainability in documentaries, in business, in technology, in climate tech, in social media is the way forward. And it's a matter of time that our children, actually us, will be suffering if we don't do that. Why is that? Because we have to report back. We need to look at the mirror and tell ourselves, are we happy with our consciousness that we are taking care of our planet to start with? Are we happy to leave the planet we live in to our kids? And did we do our part? Have I been Captain Planet today? And not only that, in Sean's case, made some money as well. So there is a way. I would like, my wish in this part of the world is, you've been talking a lot about Kareem's and other startups, which is great. My wish is to see similar related to sustainability startups, social entrepreneurs are doing a big difference in this part of the world as globally as you both did. Thank you so much and stay safe, and I'll leave it with the rest. Thank you. Well done.